Don't play with it, don't be dishonest. Still not understanding.
What's up YouTube, it's your girl Jika K and I'm back with another video. If you're new here, please like, comment, and subscribe. And if you've been here before, welcome back to my channel. What this video is going to be about today is a highly, and I do mean highly recommended request that a lot of people have been asking me about on my Instagram and my TikTok, especially when I popped out and I did my video posting my keys to my house. So yes, this video is going to be about a housing testimony. A lot of y'all already know that a couple of months back that I had started to look for housing, a place to stay. Really and truly, if I can be completely honest, I've been looking for housing for almost 2 years, but I would really say within that second year is when I got really serious about house hunting, which was last year, actually apartment hunting, you know, trying to find somewhere to stay or whatever. Last year was the year that like I really started kind of like turning it up and like looking for places to stay and just going and touring like different places from all out of town and things like that. But I'm gonna just slow down right now. But yes, y'all, this is my home testimony. Yay! Thank you, Lord, so much for that. So like I said, for 2 years I had been looking for an apartment to stay in. A lot of things back home just really wasn't working out for me. It was really rocky back home. You know, everybody was going through different things and like the heat was just really on back home, and I just felt like really depressed. And not only was it because of like, you know, like family issues and things like that, but I spent my entire pregnancy at that trailer that I used to stay in with my parents. I spent my entire pregnancy there in that room, and even after my daughter died, I spent all of my time in that room. So it's just kind of like that room was filled with a lot of negative energy, a lot of negative emotions, and I just really felt like it was time for me to leave. You know, like if I wanted to be better, I needed to leave that house. You know, I need to leave that room. You know, I believe in that saying that says that you can't get well in the environment that made you sick, if it makes sense. So like I said, I have been apartment hunting for 2 years. My second year was the year that I really just got serious about, you know, trying to find a place. But even though in that second year I got serious about trying to find a place, it does not mean that anything, you know, happened for me or that any opportunity was presented to me for me to move. So I noticed like the middle of last year, because last year is also the year that I got baptized as well, and that kind of shook up a lot of things, and that brought on a lot of emotions, and you know, I had to go through that, but everything was well worth it in the end. And like this is not even the ending like where I'm at right now, so I'm very thankful, y'all. I'm very thankful. But I got baptized last year, in the middle of last year. I want to say somewhere around May or whatever. But even then, through it all, I still found no luck on, you know, trying to find a place to stay. I really wasn't even checking here in Cordele because I felt like I wanted to move away. Like I felt like I was ready to move away. And even though, I mean, I am, but I'm just focused on the now and I'm just letting God lead me. But I felt like I did not want to stay here in Cordele, and I'm working in Ashburn, Georgia. That's like 30 minutes away from Cordele or whatever. So I'm working in Ashburn, so I'm like, maybe I should start looking for places in Ashburn, you know, to stay. I tried all kinds of apartment areas that were in Ashburn. I tried these apartments. They were really nice there. The only nice ones that I've known, to be honest, in Ashburn was Eureka Heights. So I tried there, and I put in an application, and I thought that I had something because I was talking to the landlord that was there, and she was basically letting me know of an apartment that was going to come available within the next 2 months. And so I was like, okay, that's not bad, I can wait it out. But somehow there was a disconnect. Like the lady, she just stopped responding to my messages. She stopped responding to emails and everything. I was calling her, I couldn't get an answer, and you know, just kind of put me in a bad place, and I was a little upset about it. Actually, I was really upset about it, y'all. Like, I'm not gonna lie. I was upset. Not gonna lie. I was upset, y'all. So after that, you know, I continued to, you know, look and search. I found like these 2 other apartment complexes in Ashburn, and still wasn't any luck with that. And so at this point, I'm just like, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do at this point, because everybody is turning me down. And so I remember going to work, like continuously going to work. And I remember one day I just got to a breaking point where I could not handle it. It was just a really bad day for me. Like, I knew when I woke up that morning, sorry to say it, but I knew when I woke up that morning that that day was going to be horrible. And it was, because I just couldn't get out of the funk that I was in. And it just, I remember going to work that next day kind of crying and stuff like that. And you know, I would go to the bathroom, you know, I would always request, I would holler in the hallway like, hey, can somebody let me go to the restroom? And it got so bad to a point where my boss was like, are you okay? Because, you know, I kept asking if I can go to the restroom or whatever, but I didn't tell her, you know, what was going on with me or whatever, because I just, at that point in time, I just kind of didn't want anybody, I guess I didn't really want help at that time, but it just felt like, you know, what was the use of me telling anybody or whatever like that. So I was going back and forth to the bathroom, you know, just crying, trying to get it out, and you know, and stuff like that, and prepare myself for the rest of the day, push through for the kids. So that weekend came, and I decided to just, you know, keep on looking in the Ashburn area, and eventually I started asking people around in the area if they knew of any apartment complexes, but I did not have any luck last year with that at all. And so I started looking in Tifton. I'm just like, okay, I feel like Tifton to Ashburn is the same distance that Cordele was from Cordele to Ashburn. I feel like it was like, you know, 30 minutes. It wasn't that bad. So I was apartment hunting in the Tifton area last year too, and in Tifton there are a lot of apartment complexes in Tifton. I found out that I did not know about. Like, there are all kinds of apartments in Tifton. They even have like luxury apartments, and I didn't know about that. So I was looking around in the Tifton area. I also did not know that Tifton was that big as it was either. And you know, I kind of started to feel like, okay, I could possibly move here to Tifton. Like, you know, I like it here or whatever. So I applied to like maybe at least 3 different apartment complexes that I felt like, you know, I like after I toured them and things like that or whatever. Unfortunately, last year, y'all keep in mind that this was last year, nothing fell through for me. Like, nothing fell through for me in Tifton at all. So during this duration of last year, also being that I got baptized, I got closer to God. So I started practicing, like, you know, hearing God's voice and things like that. I remember being back home at the trailer, and I was sweeping up, and he revealed himself to me. Like, I heard an audible voice I heard from God at that time. I think around that time I might have asked him like why I didn't really have, you know, the desire for YouTube like that anymore. And I remember him just talking to me. He was just like, because you was putting it before me. I kid you not, y'all, it was an audible voice. I can't really remember verbatim what it said, but I know it was something along the lines of, you was putting it before me. It was a calm, still voice. I'll never forget that day in that room or whatever. But yeah, I was practicing a lot of things as far as, like, you know, practicing hearing God's voice and just trying to follow his instructions and things like that. I learned to ask for things and to just wait for them. So I started to grow a little patience on my journey with this and started trusting the Lord that he was gonna, you know, find me somewhere to stay or whatever. So towards the ending of last year, and y'all please forgive me because I'm really just trying to remember everything, and I'm just trying to make sure that I cover everything and that I remember the most important parts of this housing testimony. But the ending of last year started approaching around, I would say, let's see, not 4th, I'm sorry, I'm tripping, I was about to say 4th of July, but New Year's Eve started approaching. In September, I remember just kind of like, you know, thinking to myself, like, you didn't have any luck in Ashburn, you didn't have any luck in Tifton, there's really nowhere else for you to go. Like, y'all, I looked in Dooley County, and that's going the other way from my job, you know, so it kind of didn't make sense, but I wasn't getting any luck in, you know, like the surrounding counties. So I started looking in my own town. Like, not even gonna say I humbled myself, but I just went on and I just started looking for something in my hometown. So I put in like 4 different applications here. I had one in at the Hilltop here in my city. I had one in this place called Pecan Grove. I put in one in Willow's Apartments, which I stayed in, which was my very first apartment. And then I put in an application to this place called Heritage Oaks. And I put in an application somewhere else, but I can't really even remember. But I also put in an application for Housing Authority, because I felt like this. I don't think I'm no better than nobody. If Housing Authority will give me somewhere to stay, then I'm gonna be there. Like, that's where I'm gonna go. And like my sister, she was also telling me about Housing Authority, but to be honest, I really didn't want to go there. I kind of was using it as a last resort, and it wasn't anything to do with, you know, me thinking that I'm too bougie, but I just feel like, okay, with the amount of money that I make, I'm a teacher. If I'm gonna pay for something, I'm gonna pay for something where I actually, you know, want to be, and where I feel like, you know, it's safe. But, you know, like I said, I don't mind. If I had a landing in Housing Authority, then so be it. I would just pray about everything and pray that the Lord has me, and that He watches over me every time I step out of my apartment and when I step back into my apartment. Like, it was never a thing of, oh, I'm too bougie, I'm disgusted. It's just that I felt like, with the amount of money I made, if I'm gonna pay $600 or $700 for somewhere to stay, then I'm gonna be where I want to really be. I'm not gonna be paying that in Housing Authority, because it doesn't make sense. And then the apartments don't even add up. It don't even look like $600 worth of nothing, if we just really gonna be real or whatever. So I put in applications there or whatever too. So the first person I really started hearing back from was the Pecans Grove apartment complex. I was talking to the landlord there. She set up an interview for me, because I actually emailed her. Because it was kind of like taking, you know, a long time. It had been 2 weeks since I put in all my applications, and I had not heard nothing from anybody. So I was just like, yeah, let me just email her. So I emailed her, and immediately she responded back to me, and she set up me an interview. And so I started feeling good about it. So I was like, okay, I'm supposed to be in Cordele all the while. Like, you know, I'm searching all these surrounding counties and stuff like that, but this is where I'm supposed to be. And I really had to condition myself for that, because to be honest, I really didn't want to be here, y'all. Like, I feel like I belong in the city at heart. Like, I still feel that way, but I'm just going with the flow. This is where God wants me to be. So I started feeling really good. I'm like, okay, I feel like I have this, because I had turned in all of my pay stubs. I turned in my proof of income. I turned in my proof of me being in school. You know, everything was good, and, you know, and stuff like that. And she had told me once the bank statements were cleared that I would hear something back from her. So I heard something back from her, and she was like, now we're just waiting for your apartment approval. So I was like, okay, cool. So I was almost pretty sure, and she was like, there's really no reason why, you know, you should not be approved. Your background is clear. You have everything, and just, you know, your portfolio, it looks good or whatever. So I'm like, okay, cool, I got this. So my hopes got up for Pecan Grove. Like, I was almost pretty sure that that's where I was going to be living. And they were decent apartments. They were nice apartments or whatever. So I started like, you know, kind of like preparing myself, basically claiming it before even knowing, you know, anything or whatever. I got my hopes up and I just completely gave up on reaching out to other apartment complexes because I'm like, this is where I'm going to be. Like, this is the only person I've heard back from, and out of all the going to the apartment complexes, these are the only people that, you know, are giving me some kind of leeway with trying to find somewhere for me to stay. So months passed by. I said this was in September. October passed by, November, and I remember within a time frame, I'm just like, you know, I'm like, does it take this long for apartment approval? And like, she was talking to me, like I was reaching out to her, and she was like, it's, you know, it's still being, you know, your request is still being put through and stuff like that. So I'm just like, okay. So like I said, October, November, December comes, and it's coming up to New Year's Eve, and like I was so for sure, like I had put in my head that whenever me and the girls linked up for us to celebrate New Year's, that I would be getting dressed in my own apartment. Like I just had this feeling like that I would be or whatever. But New Year's came, y'all, and I was still at home with my parents. Still at home with my parents now. And keep in mind, like at home with my parents, my nephews, they also stay there too. Well, they be back and forth from their mom's house to my parents' home, but they have a room at the home at my parents' home, so they're there all the time or whatever. And you know, they prefer to stay with the grandparents, you know, or whatever. So it was, you know, my mother and my father, and we had all the necessary rooms or whatever. But I also had Zealand with me. I had got Zealand last year around, was it my birthday? I'm not sure. It doesn't matter. No, because he was not born, but it doesn't matter. Keep in mind, I had Zealand with me, and y'all have seen the videos of me with Zealand. Y'all know the struggle that I have gone through with Zealand, and how he was almost gone, how I almost sent him off to the shelter. Well, how I did send him to the shelter. I got rid of him because it just was bad at home. Like, my dad was not as supportive of, you know, having Zealand. And I mean, I get it. I don't hold anything against him anymore. You know, I've learned to look at everybody as their own person, to understand them and things like that nature. So, yeah. It was rough with me having Zealand at the house with my parents or whatever. So that added on more stress. So, the beginning of this year, I left home because me and my daddy had a disagreement. We had a disagreement about Zealand. So I left home and I went to stay with my sister. My sister opened her doors, you know, to me and Zealand, like no questions. So I moved in with my sister the first beginning of this year in January. So I felt really good about it. At first I was a little sad and I was depressed, you know, because I'm just like, I'm staying at my sister's house and I'm sleeping on a couch. This very couch that I have right now in my home is the couch that I was sleeping on at my sister's apartment. So I stayed with my sister the first beginning of this year. That's where I stayed at until I found my place or whatever. So at that point, being that I had moved out and I didn't really expect to do that, it kind of threw me off, y'all. So I kind of fell off my journey with God, and I stopped practicing, you know, like hearing his voice, and I started feeding my flesh. And so I went back to my child's father. I did, but I didn't stay long. But I went back to him for a little bit. I didn't stay long, and because I didn't stay long, it was because some things were revealed to me. Like, I realized, you know, much had not changed, you know, that we just aren't compatible. And, you know, no disrespect on his behalf, you know, or anything like that. It's still all love. I still conversate with him to this day or whatever. But yeah, my eyes just, you know, got opened from that situation. And that's when I kind of started beating myself up because I realized that I had fell from God's grace. I realized that I had fell from God's grace, and around that time I also stopped going to church for about a month and a half. I stopped going back to church because I let the fact that I had moved from out of my parents' house and into my sister's, I just felt bad. I felt, you know, I didn't feel good. So I let the devil ride me around that time, and I gave up. I gave up around that time. So I lived like a month and a half off the rocker, you know, without God's will or anything like that. But one day I just woke up and I just decided to pick up my cross again, and I decided to fast. Like, this year was my first year where I found out that I can fast, that God showed me that I am equipped to fast. I don't know how I came about. Like, I wish I could. I can't even remember how I decided to start fasting or whatever this year. But I remember like just trying to get myself back into the act of, you know, talking to the Lord. I remember I started looking up videos on how to pray in the spirit, because praying was something that I was still practicing, not really knowing how to do for real. But this year, with all of that going on, I was just like, I gotta redeem myself. So I really dug deeper into my Christ journey, and I learned some new things. And I even think I learned to fast through TikTok. I think I was on TikTok one day, and I kept seeing videos about fasting. I kept seeing videos about the Daniel fast, because I tried to Daniel fast first, like for a couple of months. That didn't really work out. I felt like 21 days was too long. I didn't even have the groceries for real for that. Didn't even really know many things that I like, you know, outside of, you know, like meats and things like that. And, you know, you can't really eat bread. So I saw a fast. It was like 3 days of Esther fast, and they were saying for breakthrough. And I knew at that point in my life I was going through a lot. I was going through a lot, and I was praying for a breakthrough. Like, I wanted something to change. I wanted something to move. I felt like my apartment was going to be my breakthrough, and it was. Housing was my breakthrough. It is, but that's not even all that God is going to do for me. I'm pretty sure. But yeah, so I started looking up and, you know, studying like fasting, and then I started trying to fast, you know, with the Esther. It was a lot of failed attempts that I went through to you know, before I could actually complete the fast. But within the times of me doing the fast, because like I said, January, February, March, and I moved out in April from with my sister. And to be honest, with all of that going on, the pressure was on, because my sister had got a note at the apartment complex that she was staying in as well, that by June that even she would have to be gone from the apartment complex. And not because, you know, she was not paying bills or anything like that, because she was, but they were, I guess they was moving out a lot of old tenants so that they could what's the word I'm thinking of? Holy Spirit. I can't really think of the word, but they were about to revamp the apartment complex, so they needed the people to move out of the homes by June. And my sister found out about that. We found out about that in February. So the pressure was on. And keep in mind, like, when I moved in with my sister, I could only stay there with her, I want to say, was it 6 months? I think it was 6 months, I want to say. So January, February, March, April, May. Okay, but I moved out anyway before my 6 months was up. But still, you know, the pressure was still on, because we had found out that even she would have to be gone before, well, by June, because they were about to revamp, you know, the area. And I remember thinking, like, wow, like, what am I gonna do? Because I mean, I don't want to move back home, and then if my sister has to move back home, like, the space back home is going to be tight. And I just was like, I don't want to do that. So I was even more stressed out at that point, you know, just trying to find somewhere to stay. And so I started like apartment hunting again in the Ashburn area, Tifton area. And I remember around the time I went to work and I kind of like spazzed out, not on anybody, but I completely lost it at work. I was a crying mess. I couldn't get it together. I was crying in front of my students, and I remember I had to be excused from out of the classroom, and I pretty much had a meltdown outside my job in the parking lot. I was sitting on the concrete, crisscross applesauce, snot running out of my nose like it was a mess. One of my coworkers, she came and she prayed over me. She was speaking in tongues, and it was just really bad that day. My eyes were so dark because I was so tired. Like, I had been crying, keeping them, like, I had been crying really bad, y'all. And I don't know if y'all are familiar with the Leviathan spirit. The Leviathan spirit was on me because around that time, like, my neck and everything just became so stiff. I got to a point where I felt like I was actually about to commit suicide. Like, the stress was so heavy. I remember like being ready to get home from work and just being glad that, you know, my sister was at work and that the kids were at our parents' home so that I could go home and just cry. So I could just cry, like, ugly cry. You know, it was horrible, y'all. You know, even though I still had like a roof over my head and a place to lay my head at, I could not see that I was still blessed at that time. I really couldn't see that. And I couldn't see the fact that at least I was not home where I felt like all the negative energy, you know, was coming from. So eventually, after that day of me having a meltdown at work, I started to like feel better, and I started looking at things for what it was. I say at that time God was starting to kind of like work through me from all of the fasting that I was trying to do, because I never really completed like a full fast, you know. So I felt like God was slowly, like, you know, looking at my efforts that I was doing, you know, spending the time with him and fasting and stuff like that, and getting back into church and stuff like that. So my coworker, the one that prayed for me, and also another coworker, they started trying to help me find a place to stay. This one lady told me about a trailer that was in Ashburn, and so I went and I viewed the trailer, and again, I kind of got my hopes up, you know, just thinking like, you know, like, this is where I'm going to be, because I actually walked and I viewed the trailer. The man was actually, he was on the road at that time, but he had told me when he got back in town, which would be like 2 days later, that I could give him my first month's rent and the deposit. And so I had all of that because I had got a school check. Thank you, Lord. Thank you, Lord, for that, because I needed it. And so those 2 days, 2 days later, they came, and I remember calling the man, and I didn't get an answer. That third day, he called me, and so I got excited. I was like, okay, so it's meant to be. But he told me that the trailer that I looked in 2 of them. He told me the one that I looked in, no, it was 3. The one that I looked in that I wanted, he told me he was sorry because that one was already sold. How did he forget that it was already sold? I don't know. So that kind of upset me, because I had my mindset like that trailer looked good on the inside or whatever. It looked really, I'm sorry, y'all. Sorry. But it looked really good on the inside. And so I just kind of was like, I was a little upset. And so the man, he told me, he gave me some time and he told me to think about it. So I thought about it for a good 2 weeks. Within those 2 weeks, me and my sister, we got into a heated, argument. And so at this point, I'm just like, okay. I called the man. I told him I would take the third trailer that I looked in or whatever. I had not told my parents or anything that I was looking for housing outside of Cordele, because I just felt like I love my parents. I love my mom and my dad, but they have sheltered me for so long. So I felt that I could not really tell them something like that and that they'd be, proud for me. Not saying they would speak down on, what I wanted to do on purpose, but you just gotta feel me when you feel me on that or whatever. So I did not tell them, but after me and my sister had the heated conversation, I called the man back and I let him know that I would take the apartment. So I was supposed to meet up with him the next morning. I went on and I left my sister's house because it was I went on and I left my sister's house. I'm sorry, y'all. I know the timeline sucks, but I'm just trying to remember this stuff as I go. That was around my sister's birthday, which was in January. So I left my sister's house, and I went on and I told my nephews and my niece, I told my goodbyes to them or whatever. It upset them, it had them sad, because I told them I was leaving because I was moving to Ashburn. That night, I got a room in my city. The room was awful. It was horrible. Me and Zealand. It was really cold in the place, and it smelled bad. I could not relax because I was afraid. It was a little $70 room, but I just had to go. I was upset. I left. And so after that, I didn't even, when I left my sister's home, I didn't even tell her that I was gone or whatever. She didn't even know that, I was as upset as I was. And so I just left without her knowing. When she came in that room later on that day, well, in her living room where I was sleeping, all of my stuff was gone. So, yeah, me and her, we had it out or whatever. But we smoothed it out. And that was after I found out, things weren't going to work out with the trailer. The man, he stood me up. I could not, get a hold to him. And so that was that. So, I had to go back to my sister and I had to apologize because I was wrong. At the time, I was going through a lot. So, I was just treating her how I felt, or whatever. So I went back home with my sister and I continued to stay there and I continued to practice, with God and ask him to change me and to change my ways, this, that, and the third. Apartment hunting was still going bad. Still had not found a place to stay. So I went through January, February, and some of March, just not even having any kind of leeway of not knowing where I can stay. June is coming and we're in March and I still don't have no kind of leads on where I'm going. And my sister still doesn't even know where she's going to go. So that was, just stress, double stress for the both of us. In March, the ending of March, I want to say, I'm thinking the end of March, I'm thinking that's when it was. My camera is probably about to die because it's overheated. That sucks. 2 months ago, which was like in April, well, probably like March, somewhere up in there, my uncle passed away. My Uncle Scotty, he passed away from cancer. So, in the month of March is when I was like, I'm getting serious with this fasting thing. I want something to move before April. Like, I started saying, like, how cool it would be for me to have gotten some good news, and to be able to spend my birthday in my house. So that's when I got serious and I locked in and I started fasting. around that time. I had lost my uncle, and things was just really bad. The last 3 days of March is when I completed my first full 3-day Esther fast. No water, no food. And I have to rewind, y'all. I'm sorry, I'm leaving something out. Okay. So within the month of March, I did a lot of like just trying to follow God, because I had started to see like housing testimonies on YouTube. It just popped up out of nowhere. And so I got this idea in my mind, like, I just want to move away. You know, I was going through a lot. I was like, maybe I should try looking, you know, out of town and find a new job. So I started looking around in the Warner Robins area. And somehow I picked up this idea of asking God, like, Lord, if you want me to do such and such, reveal to me such and such. I picked up this thing of doing that. And a lot of times it worked. But a lot of time I was being sunk down a rabbit hole. Like the final time that I was, you know, looking for, you know, housing, I needed this fast to help me. I needed this fast to help me find housing. I was looking in Warner Robins at the time, so that's why I say in the month of March, the last 3 days of March is when I fasted or whatever, and I was just praying that I got an approval, you know, from an apartment complex that was in Warner Robins. I applied to so many places there. I can't really remember, but I know I applied to like at least, I toured at least 6 places, and I only applied to 3 of them. I narrowed it down to 3. So like I said, my uncle passed away in March. He passed away in March. And so the last 3 days, I really can't even remember when in March. So the last 3 days of March, like I said, is when I fasted, y'all. Okay, my uncle, he passed away March 25th. The last 3 days of March, which was the 29th, the 30th, and the 31st, I started my Esther fast on the 29th. And at this point, I was fasting and standing my word, and I was just like, the Lord is going to, you know, give me my apartment soon. So on that second day, I was headed to, the first day, I was headed to Warner Robins just to see if I could just, you know, kind of like feel the area, you know. I was just like, because I had started getting excited, so I was really just going because I wanted crumble cookie, and I was just getting excited because I was claiming it. I was like, this is where I'm gonna be, you know. Hopefully I hear something back from the job that I had applied, and hopefully I hear something back from the places that I had applied to or whatever. And so like my ride up there to Warner Robins, everything was just making sense. I had asked God if I was supposed to be in Warner Robins, show me the numbers 999. I saw the numbers 999 on a truck as I was headed to Warner Robins. And so I started feeling good. I was like, this is where I'm supposed to be. I'm like, I'm fasting. I'm like, this is it's getting real. God is leading me up to where I'm supposed to be. It's getting real. So I got to Warner Robins. I got my crumble cookie and I got my food, and I just, you know, kind of chilled around in the area, you know, just trying to get used to everything, and just basically setting myself up for failure, because that's not where I was going to reside. So I went back home. After eating and stuff like that, I felt good. I felt accomplished, you know, and things. I started feeling really good about, you know, where I was going to, where I thought that the Lord was, you know, leading me to. So that next day, I didn't get approved for the apartments there. I didn't get approved. The girl, she called me. I actually heard from all 3 places, within that same day. I didn't even know that would be possible to do. I'm here looking for places in Cordele. I can't even get somebody to respond back to me, but I go to Warner Robins and everybody reaches out to me in one day and tell me no, that the apartments I didn't get approved. So I'm just like, it was probably just a pay rate that I had put on there, because I only used my information from my current job right now, because I had not heard anything about from the job up there. So I was just like, okay, so now what? I asked you, Lord, to show me 999 if this is where I'm supposed to be. So my uncle, he had us sitting up later on. That's when, the family gather and stuff like that. After the person has passed, we gather and we eat food and we cook, and I don't know if that's a thing for everybody else, but they call it a sit up here where I'm from. So, or an awake, that's what they call it. So I was going to my uncle's awake later on that day at my uncle's house, who stays next door. I made plans to attend the awake, but early that morning, which was my second day of my fast, the 30th, I was like, one last try. I was like, let me just go to Tifton and apply to this place that it was kind of like a last resort. A last resort. So I applied there. Well, I went and I got an application from there, and I remember thinking to myself on my way down there, like, Lord, if Tifton is where I need to be, I was like, show me the numbers 999 still. So I'm heading to Tifton. I see 999. I see it on a semi truck on I-75. I see it on a billboard as soon as I get in Tifton. And so at this point, I'm feeling like, okay, maybe Tifton is where I'm supposed to be. So I'm like, okay, I got this application. I was like, surely that this is it. This is day 2 of my fast and nothing has happened, so this is it. So I get back home later on and I put the application up for later so I can fill it out. But I get ready to, I put my clothes on and stuff like that so I can come over here to my uncle's house for the wake for my uncle that had just passed. And I'm out, but I'm just kind of like spaced out because I'm drained from like apartment hunting and from following numbers, and stuff like that for weeks and stuff. So my dad is here and he was like, that house next door is available. Nobody stay there. And so I'm just like, yeah, whatever, Dad. I'm just like, now is not the time. I don't want to stay here in Cordele, so I'm not studying that house. And I never even paid attention. I never paid attention to this house out of all of my time in my entire life of going to my uncle's house. I never paid attention to this house a day in my life. I don't know if it was always this color that it was or if it wasn't. I just never really. So I'm sorry, y'all. I have to finish this video on my phone. So, yeah, I never really paid attention to this house ever in my entire life. Keep in mind, all of my life that I have lived, my uncle has always stayed next door, even as a young girl, and I never paid attention to this house or whatever. So, like I said, my dad was telling me that the house next door, which is the house that I'm in right now, he was like, it's available. And I kind of brushed him off because in my mind, I'm supposed to be staying in Tifton. I'm moving to a city, like that's bigger than Cordele. I'm like, I'm not studying. I'm supposed to be in Tifton. I saw the numbers 99. So time go on or whatever. And my dad, he's so adamant about this house. And so I'm like, okay, let me just go tell my uncle that whenever the time is right, I would love to, go look in the house just to get my daddy to get off my back, or whatever. So my uncle, he was like, oh, that old ugly house next door. He was like, you want to look in it? And so I'm just like, yeah, I guess, I'm like, he's calling it ugly. So maybe I don't need to stay here or whatever. So he was like, okay, no problem, baby. He was like, I'll let you look in it tomorrow. Keep in mind, tomorrow was the last day of the fast, the 31st. So he gives me the key later on that night of the awake, he gives me the key. I go in. It was dark in here because, of course, it was dark outside. There was no lights in here, so I really couldn't see on the inside of here. So the next morning, I woke up and I came. I looked at the place, and I didn't like it. I didn't like it. My mind was set on an apartment in Tifton. So later on that night, I went back home. I went back home with my sister. And I remember just thinking to myself, like, I remember just thinking to myself, like, I got to be realistic. So somehow, the Lord allowed me to see 999 and Warner Robins, and somehow I was led back here. Like, this was God's plan all the while. I was led back to Cordell, to my uncle's awake. And that's when God gave me a place to stay. Before I even said a yes, this house was mine. So I remember telling my sister, like, I don't really like the way it looks on the inside. And so she started telling me, you know, like, home is really what you make it. She even came over, and my parents came over, and they was like, I like it. They was like, once you put your furniture and stuff in here, everything's going to be good. So my uncle told me, he was like, I give you a week, you know, and you let me know if you want it or if you don't. He was like, I'm not going to give it away. He said, you got the key. You just let me know. So for a week, I kept coming back and forth over here, you know, just trying to get a feel of the place. And so finally I gave in, and I just was like, you know what? I'm going to take it. Even when I took it, I was not sure about this place. I was not sure at all. It just did not look how I wanted it to look. It didn't look how I wanted it to look. And so that was one of the things that I was, you know, bent on, because I wanted a place that looks right, you know, that has a nice aesthetic for, you know, content or whatever. So, like I said, I took the place, and I still just wasn't sure of, you know, if I really wanted to live here. So as time went by, I started to, like, kind of see the potential in the place. And so I told my uncle, you know, I want it. So I went on and paid my first month's rent and the deposit on April 1st. By my birthday, April 8th, I was moved in here. At that point, I started to, like, kind of like fall in love with the place. I had not had all of my furniture or anything in here. It was blank. When I first moved in here, I didn't even have a sofa chair in the living room. All I had was a mattress in my room. That was it. I had my mattress. That was it. So, eventually on down the line, and it's so crazy because there was also things that led up to this or whatever. I was seeing stuff on the internet, you know, saying that God was going to provide, that, you know, I didn't have to worry about it. I saw a video on YouTube about provision. Then I get to church one day, and a girl from the church was singing the song, Watch God Provide. And then I saw on a commercial about provision. And so I felt like, okay, God is really just telling me, like, this place is mine, and that when I take it, he's going to give me everything that's going to, you know, go in here. And which it's true, because my sister ended up giving me the sofa chair that I was sleeping on in her house. And then when I moved in, my daddy gave me a refrigerator that he already had, and he gave me the microwave that he had. And also my uncle gave me a washing machine and a dryer that I did not have to pay for. The only thing is, when I move, he wants it back, and I understand that. And he also put a stove in my home. I did not have to pay for any of that, and not to mention the air mattress that I was sleeping on. My coworker gave me that. So God did just what he said that he was going to do. He provided the provision for everything in this house. I have not had to pay for anything other than rent, you know, but everything in this home was provided by God. Now, I did buy one TV, but everything else was provided. Like, I didn't have to pay anything. And I'm so thankful for my home. I'm glad that I chose this place. I really am. I'm going to give y'all a little house tour. I am. A little brief house tour. Just a second. Hold on. I really hope that this video makes sense. I hope that it's right. I hope I'm not too chatty. I am still kind of new to this, so eventually I will get better with my content and I won't be as chatty, but I'm just really hoping that this video speaks to somebody. I really hope it does, but this is my home. Hold on. And one more thing, before I go, something that kept, beaming on me, in my mind, it was you were looking for an apartment and God wanted to give you a house. That's just the theme of this whole entire thing. I was looking for an apartment and God wanted to give me a house. I'm so thankful, y'all. But that's the ending of this video. I hope you guys have enjoyed. I pray that this video does bless someone, anyone that comes across it. And I just hope y'all enjoy the rest of your day, night, or whenever I release this video. I'm going to try to put it out tomorrow, maybe. But I pray that this video just blesses someone. I'm gonna go before I start messing up on my words. So yeah. And this is my living room, y'all. That's the one of the bedrooms. This is a 2-bedroom. This is my room in here. This is my room. This is my little small bathroom. And this is my kitchen, y'all. That's the stove that my uncle provided for me. Now, the bottom does not work. The oven part does not work, but who cares? He said he'll come and fix it soon. He's an electrician, so yeah. This is my refrigerator. New Zealand. And I just told y'all the testimony about, my groceries and things. And this is my washroom, y'all. This is my washing machine. This is the dryer and everything. This is the whole little shebang. So this is my little place. It's fit for just, me and Zealand. It's a 2-bedroom. I remember I used to say wherever place. I did have a list of things that I wanted for my apartment or whatever to have. I said that I kind of wanted a 2-bedroom so that I could have a content room. So God he did listen to me on that part. He did give me a second room for content or whatever. And I'm so thankful, you guys. God worked it out. He worked it out for me to be in here, and I'm so glad, and I do not regret it, and I'm at so much peace in my home. It just feels good waking up every morning. And I'm sorry, I had to look out my door because I do have it open. I wake up every morning, I'm at peace in here, and couldn't be happier, y'all. So this was my housing testimony, and again, I hope that I'm able to help somebody if they come across this video. And I'm sorry for being too chatty, y'all. I will try to be better with that next time, but right now I'm just being obedient. God said put the video out. He been telling me to put it out, and I've been ignoring it, but now I finally done it. So yeah, y'all be blessed.